Hey everybody, thanks for listening in to our presentation from VMworld 2020 on a practical guide for managing cloud reservations and discounts. My name is Lucas Paratori. I'm a senior product manager at Cloud Health by VMware, and I'm joined by John McGivern and Parker Stevens from Groupware. Please make sure to fill out the survey after listening to this on the mobile app. So a quick introduction in Cloud Health. So Cloud Health is the global leader in multi-cloud management. We currently manage over $11 billion of annual cloud spend, and a majority of our customers use Cloud Health to manage either one or more public or hybrid cloud environments. One of the things companies are able to do is on average use Cloud Health to save more than 25% off of their cloud savings. VMware acquired Cloud Health in 2018, and since then we've grown to over 400 employees and have over 10,000 customers and partners globally. Some of those partners are like Groupware.
And hi, my name is John McGivern. Together with my colleague Parker Stevens and a few others on our team, we work for Groupware Technology, and we focus on cloud optimization. And we are heavily involved both in doing this for our 50 plus customers, but we are also engaged with Cloud Health as our tool for helping us to do this cloud optimization.
Great. So first we're going to start really high level is what is a reservation? Reservation is a commitment. It has an end date that you've made with the cloud provider in an agreement for discounted pricing. So there's a benefit for you as a purchaser because now you're going to pay less money. And then it's a benefit for the cloud provider as well, as it allows them to plan for their capacity as usage increases, and then potentially have to spin up for a new availability zone or region. I'm going to go into each cloud provider a bit further, but just at a high level, wanted to give that breakdown. So for each cloud provider, they call them a different thing. Makes it easy. No, it doesn't. So for Azure, they have reservations, and you can have reservations for services like compute, or for their past services like storage, or for things like app services. You also have Google Cloud, where they have committed use discounts or flat rate purchases. Committed use discounts can apply to both services like compute or Cloud SQL, while flat rate purchases apply to solely BigQuery. Lastly, we have AWS. AWS has reserved instances and savings plans. We're going to go into savings plans a bit more later on in the presentation, and Groupware is going to definitely give us a good walkthrough of kind of the way that they've seen the market and some ways that their customers are leveraging savings plans. One of the big reasons and benefits that you'll see is the opportunity to save money. So just at a high level, you can see some of the opportunities to save in compute. You can get over 70% savings. Now that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to get that 70 to 72% savings every time. Depending on the cloud provider, depending on the instance type, they offer different savings. So for some instance types in AWS, for instance, sometimes you're only getting in the 20s and 30% off the discount. So that's something that's really important to keep in mind when thinking about purchasing reservations and committed use discounts, that it's not just about covering every instance, it's about covering the right instances. So the next thing that we have is this concept of reserved capacity. And I want to cover this because for some of our cloud providers, that's coupled with reservations, and for others, they've decoupled it. So what reserved capacity means is it means you have a guarantee that you can launch infrastructure in a specific region with a specific configuration. So let's say that you know that you run a pretty unique instance type in a relatively lesser used region. They may not have a lot of that available on a day-to-day basis. So what you may need to do is enter this agreement with the cloud provider. We'll go into the different types depending on the cloud provider, but to guarantee that whether you are running instance or not, you always will be able to run an instance. So the way the cloud providers handle that is quite different. So in Microsoft, they make it pretty easy. It's coupled with reservations. So if you purchase a reserved instance, that also means that you will automatically be able to launch an instance or infrastructure with that specific configuration. In Google, they also kind of make it easy, but they completely separate it. So when you purchase committed use discounts, that does not guarantee that you can launch an infrastructure in that region with that configuration. What you then have to do is purchase a second thing, which is a zonal reservation. Now, something to be important about this is that zonal reservations do not have a contract term. You could purchase one at 6 a.m. and then terminate it at 6 p.m. There is no specific contract term to that. So this is kind of an opportunity for you to think about these things separately and then purchase them as an as-needed basis. Lastly, we have AWS. Before savings plans, before regional RIs, there were AZ scoped RIs. And those included capacity reservation. So if you were to want to launch an instance, you automatically, and you purchased an AZ scoped RI, you automatically could launch an infrastructure there. But with the introduction of regional RIs or savings plans, that benefit went away. So if you would like to get that benefit, you need to also purchase capacity reservations. Those, just like with Google, you can end them if you would, whenever you would like. I'm going to drill a bit into Azure. A lot of words on this slide. It's intentional. It's confusing. There are all of these, over 15 different services in Azure that you can purchase reserved instances for. Just to call out a few of the ones, just to understand from a market perspective, we see a lot of companies purchasing reserved instances in SQL DBs, VMs, app services, blob storage, and Databricks. Those are a lot of the top services we see companies purchasing reservations in. Drilling into Azure a bit further, there's this concept of scope, and this applies to all cloud providers. This is how wide of a range that reservation will be able to apply to. So in Azure, you can purchase the reservation in a resource group. And what will happen is that reservation will only apply to usage in that resource group. If that RI is not being used, it will not apply to usage outside of that. The next level up would be single scoped reservations. That lives in a subscription and will apply to all usage in that subscription. If it doesn't get used again in that subscription, it will then not float out to any other subscriptions. The final is shared. That will apply to all usage within a subscription or outside of that subscription. So you have that flexibility when you purchase the reservation. You can also change it during the life of the reservation. The next thing, which has been a big new change in Microsoft, is the ability to purchase monthly payment term RIs. Previous to September 2019, all reservations were all upfront. So you paid for that 1 or 3 year RI at the start of that reservation. You paid for the entire term of that. Now with monthly payment, what they do is they took that total and divided it by the number of months in that contract, and then on the date of purchase each month, you're charged that monthly amount. So you buy an RI on the 5th, that means the 5th of every month, you're going to get one lump sum charge. We've seen massive adoption with this because you get the same discount rate for monthly payment versus all up front. So this is an opportunity for you to keep your money in your pocket while still getting that same benefit that if you were to pay all up front. One of the really powerful things about Microsoft is their ability to exchange reservations, but not just exchange. If you don't have any applicable usage, you can also cancel. And you can cancel up to $50,000 in reservations per year. So Google, it's a bit simpler because of the way that they share committed use discounts across compute and their PaaS services. So that's going to be something I'm going to get into a bit more. But with Google, they give this flexibility that allows you to move your workloads from IaaS to PaaS potentially and still get the benefit of your reservations. One thing you can't leave out in Google is the concept of sustained use discount. So this is not a reservation. You'll think back to the concept of reservation. It has a commitment with an end date. Sustained use discount does not have an end date. What happens is Google will automatically give you a discount for just running an instance throughout the month. So if you start an instance at the beginning and end it at the end, you'll actually get a 30% discount off of your on-demand rate without doing anything, just hitting the on button. Now, it's important to note you cannot combine sustained use discount and committed use discount. So how Google works is they apply all of your committed use discount, and when you have all of your remaining usage, then they apply sustained use discount. So you can't think about being able to pack these together and get double discount if you also purchase committed use discount. So what we have right here is you're going to see this is pretty consistent usage. Roughly at the beginning of July, some infrastructure was spun down. But as you can see, roughly each day, this customer is spending about $50 on compute. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to include the sustained use discount credits that Google gives. And what this will do is this now shows you that by the end of the month, you're actually paying much less than you were at the beginning of the month. And that's where it can get to that full 30% discount off of your sustained use discount, or 30% discount off of on-demand. So drilling in a bit more into GCP. So the first thing is GCP in terms of scope. They have billing account scoped reservations or committed use discounts and project scoped. This is that same concept where a billing account committed use discount will apply to usage anywhere in that billing account, irregardless of which project purchased it. Project scoped, that usage will only apply to committed use discount will only apply to usage in that project. In Google, they have less flexibility in terms of payment offerings as well. Now, depending on the service, they have different opportunities, but within each service, it's the same. So in compute, you only have no upfront. You cannot purchase partial or all upfront committed use discounts. Now, for things like BigQuery, it's all upfront. And then lastly, they released Cloud SQL. So this is their biggest, most recent change. It just went out in the last few months. This is an hourly commitment model, very similar to the AWS savings model. And this now also most recently applies to VMware Cloud, Google Cloud VMware Engine as well. So they have the support for Cloud SQL and Google Cloud VMware Engine. I'd mentioned the flexibility of Google where it applies between PaaS and IaaS. So right now you purchase committed use discounts in Google in compute, and that committed use discount can either apply to usage that is standard compute, that is GKE, Google Kubernetes Engine usage, or Dataproc usage. So all three of those services will share the same committed use discounts. So that we've seen a lot of our customers use that as a means of flexibility as they've moved along that cloud journey from IaaS to PaaS. The last thing to call out, which is the lack of flexibility, is the lack of exchanging or refunding. So in both cloud providers, they have the ability to exchange. In AWS and Azure, you have the ability to exchange. In Azure, you have the ability to also refund. But in Google, once you have made a commitment to a specific instance family, you're committed to that instance family for the life of that commitment. In terms of AWS, you'll notice also many different services. One of the ways that AWS has been able to kind of increase flexibility is through savings plans. Folks at GroupWare will talk through that a bit more, but what that allows you to do is now have this one savings plan that can apply to EC2 or Fargate or to Lambda. So just really at a high level, some additional information on AWS reservations. So the first thing to call out is around savings plans is the flexible price model. GroupWare, again, is going to go into that a bit further, but that's really something that we've seen since they released this back in 2019 as the direction. Our customers, the amount of RI purchases has gone down. We've just seen massive adoption of savings plans. One of the things that AWS gives is the ability to specify how you want to pay for that RI, whether it's an all, a partial, or a no upfront. Unlike with the other cloud providers, depending on how much you shell out, you get a different discount. So if you were to make an all upfront purchase, you're going to get a better discount rate than if you were to do a no upfront purchase. The next thing AWS has is convertible RIs. So this is the ability to exchange any instances across families and be able to then get the benefit of reservations across those. This is especially powerful when Amazon releases new instance types to be able to then leverage those new instance types and those new instance families. One thing that often comes up that I like to share with our customers is that you cannot exchange convertible RIs or any sort of RIs for savings plans. So although you can exchange convertible RIs for other RIs, you cannot do that across savings plans. So one of the things you mentioned is this massive adoption. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass over to the folks at Groupware to really talk a bit more into savings plans.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Lucas has done a really nice job of giving you the lay of the land on how you can save money by making commitments across the 3 providers. What we want to do is walk you through, Parker and I will walk you through the idea of what savings plans are and why they've become so popular in replacing reservations for EC2. So, with that being said, let me walk through what's the matter with EC2 reservations. Well, across our 50 customers, we've seen some reluctance for some customers due to a number of reasons. First of which is they're restrictive. They can be as restrictive as down to the instance type, the region, and the OS. And a lot of people don't like to lock themselves in, even for a 1-year period at that level. They can be inflexible. To get the maximum discounts, you can't change them. You can get convertible RIs, but then you lose some of the discount percentages. There is some risk. If you stop using EC2, you can't necessarily use the reservation that you bought. And when you do that, you can actually lose money on the reservation instead of gaining money. And lastly, even if you have convertibles or standard RIs, you have to monitor them. It takes a lot of work to ensure that you're actually using them. So this, not to say that reservations haven't been used tremendously, they have, but some people don't dive in as deep as we would expect because of these restrictions. So what the heck is a savings plan? Well, there's a lot of terminology on here. Basically, what I want you to know is there's 2 types of savings plans, and we're going to walk you through them. But the biggest difference with a savings plan is that you're no longer buying an instance type with an OS and a region. You're buying $1 of hourly spend. So it's somewhat similar to what Lucas mentioned with Google that they just came out with. When AWS came out with this, basically you're buying $1 of hourly spend, and that spend can be applied differently throughout the hours of the day, depending on what type of workloads you're running. And when it comes to the compute savings plan, AWS has finally come out with the easy button. They've basically made it so that you don't have to monitor other than at the aggregate level now. You don't have to exchange, you don't have to move things around, and we'll walk you through how that works. So do my discounts change between reservations and savings plans? And the answer is no. If you look up the discount rates across the regions and instance types throughout the world, a standard EC2 RI is going to have the same savings rate as an EC2 instance savings plan. A convertible EC2 RI is going to have the same savings rate as a compute savings plan. So if you're ever looking up the rates, you don't have to learn a new set of rates. Now, what about the restrictions? Why are these better than reservations? So if you are buying standard EC2 RIs today, you have to buy them at the region, the OS, and the instance or instance family level, depending on which OS you choose. Whereas if you buy an EC2 instance savings plan, which has the same savings rates, you are only buying at the region and the instance family. So you can change within the instance family, and you can also switch OSs. So it's significantly less restrictive. Now, when I talk about the easy button, this is where I talk about the compute savings plan. With convertible EC2 RIs, you were only tied to the region, as Lucas mentioned before. However, you had to monitor it to make sure that things weren't changing under the surface. And if they were, you had to exchange things. Well, the way it works with compute savings plans is that you are not only buying EC2 compute, but savings plans can be applied to Lambda and Fargate as well. anywhere in the world, on any OS, on any compute. So for the first time, you can move regions, you can move OSs, you can change your families, you don't have to worry, but you still get a savings that is the same as if you had convertible RIs. So before I leave this slide, I want to mention that convertible RIs we're seeing almost no one get anymore because there's not a lot of reason for them because you have the compute savings plan. However, with the EC2 instance savings plan, we do see some usage of it, but I will caution you this, you still have some level of restriction, and with savings plan, you cannot sell them on the open market. So the marketplace does not, you can't sell your savings plans on the marketplace. However, with standard EC2 RIs, if you stop using them, you can at least sell them. It will be at a discount, but you can get some of your money back. So the reason I'm telling you this is that on the compute savings plan, it's pretty much aggregate. If you use X amount of compute, you're okay. With the EC2 instance savings plan, some of our customers are still buying RIs because for the same savings, they get the flexibility of being able to sell on the marketplace if they want to. Now, one of the really neat things about the compute savings plan is that it applies different savings percentages at each hour. So this is just a sample. Don't take this data for real. But say the X1 family is saving at 72%, and the C4 is in the 50s, and M5 at 40, I3 and T2, and so forth. So that the savings percentage you get on them is different. And this is the way AWS works in the instance families, okay? Well, what happens here is that in any given hour, it will take the X1 savings first, then the C4, then the M5, up to the dollar amount that you've used. So it's going to maximize your savings. Where this is really interesting is say you have an analytics workload that runs overnight and it runs for 6 hours, say, and it uses the X1s in this example. You're actually going to get greater savings for those 6 hours during the night than when the X1s are not running because it's going to go apply it to the X1s first. Very powerful stuff. And Parker's going to show you later an example where a customer of ours had RIs covering a higher savings. And when that RI expired, it was able to pick that up in the savings plan first. He'll show you that later. Now, very important, AWS has this thing called account affinity. And what is account affinity? Based on the previous chart, say that I have 3 different AWS accounts. One has the M5 in it, next one has the X1, and the other one has C4. If I buy my first set of a savings plan in the account that has the M5s, it's going to take up that savings first. So it's not going to use the chart that you saw on the previous slide until the M5s are used up because it's going to use everything in that account. Then it's going to go to the X1 and the C4. So you may not be maximizing your savings if you buy in the wrong account. Well, what have we done with our customers? In every case where we've helped customers set up savings plans, what we've done is we've set up a $0 admin account. AWS has been recommending these for years, either for financial tracking or just general administrative use, but now there's a real reason to use them. Basically, if you have a zero resource account and you buy your savings plans there, the algorithm will immediately transfer out of that account because there's no resources. Where is it going to go? To the highest savings first, which means it's going to go to the X1s. Then it's going to go to the C4s. Then it's going to go to the M5s. So we have every customer who has done savings plans with us has set up an admin account costs you nothing, but it maximizes your savings dollar. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Parker to explain the additional benefits and how you can use the Cloud Health tool to help you manage savings plans.
Thanks, John. So with savings plans, there's a lot of additional benefits, and I wanted to talk about how they work and also focus on, again, the compute savings plan, because the compute savings plan is what I like to call the hyper-flexible plan. Now in AWS, there are so many regions out there, and every year it seems like they're coming out with new regions that you can utilize. And you might have a small development team in a different region or close to one of those newer regions that you want to utilize. However, you might not be willing to commit to that 1 year of utilizing, a standard RI with, a specific OS, a specific instance type, etc. So those savings are really inaccessible, and it really hampers innovation. But if you have a compute savings plan, just committing to an hourly dollar amount, that compute savings plan could be utilized in those smaller regions for maybe the 3 months that infrastructure is spun up there. So it's really handy to have that as a new feature set and allows you to access those previously inaccessible savings. Now, we utilize Cloud Health, as John mentioned, and manage about 50 customers underneath it. Now, with these 50 customers, we're helping them purchase savings plans left and right, and Cloud Health has conveniently come out with a new Savings Plan Explorer, which gives you an estimate and a quote that breaks down, how your commit would, or how much it would save you per month and per year. It's pretty handy. All you do is put in, your evaluation period, which billing account you want to purchase in, and then it has a couple of options as to how it generates a quote. But it gives you this fancy 6-panel option page, which is great for your finance team to review, just understand how much is being committed, if there's a no upfront, all upfront, or partial upfront, and then whether it's 1 or 3 years. And then furthermore, if you wanted to analyze how that's applied, it can take into account your current standard RIs or existing savings plans, as a lot of folks like to stack savings plans like a stock portfolio. Now in AWS, you actually make the purchase. So it's located in the same place that you would go and purchase a reserved instance under cost management. However, there's a new pane called savings plans. And you can purchase the savings plans as noted by the arrow. And when you go to purchase a savings plan, you're presented with 2 options. It's a really simple screen. And I wanted to demonstrate that if you chose the EC2 instance savings plan option, you're asked, the term, 1 year or 3 year, but then also you have to specify the region and the instance family. Not the instance type or size, but just the instance family and the region. Now, on the other hand, with the compute savings plan, you still choose the term. However, there's no region or instance family that you have to commit to. And then scroll down and you see, how much you're committing per hour in the dollar amount. And then your payment options, no upfront, partial upfront, or all upfront, and below your final, purchase. And if there's upfront costs, and then the monthly recurring charges. Now, monthly recurring charges is kind of confusing to some people. All that means is that it's what you're on the hook for utilizing. AWS expects you to utilize $14,600 in this case per month. And if you don't, you're on the hook for paying that the difference. And then your total 1 year commitment there is $175,000. Now back in Cloud Health, it's pretty easy to track your savings plans under the asset screen and in cost management. And it'll track both types of savings plans. So I highlighted here amongst the compute savings plans which don't have the region or instance family restrictions, it still shows your EC2 instance savings plan there as well, and which restrictions you've chosen, or which types you've chosen. And lastly, Cloud Health has a great savings plan dashboard that breaks down how your savings plans are applied amongst your current RIs and gives you the difference between the applied RIs and your on-demand. And this is incredibly useful for different types of individuals in your organization. So this top panel here, I really like to showcase for the management team. They like to see just a quick weekly breakdown of their standard RIs, their compute RIs, their compute savings plans, etc. And then a pie chart that just breaks down what's left on the table. There's about 21% of on-demand in this case. There's a couple other screens that show the cost before RIs were applied versus the actual charge, so how much you saved because of the RIs and the compute savings plans. And on the right side, unused savings plans and unused RIs. And that's where it goes back to, if you don't meet your commitment, you're still on the hook for paying AWS those unused fees. There's a couple other screens that show the hourly applied instances. So which instances are gaining the benefit of those compute savings plans. And this can be really interesting. I'll show another example in a moment. But if you spin up a bigger instance that has a higher savings, on 2 hours of a day, you'll actually see the savings plan change where it's being applied because it'll get that bigger discount. And then on that last screen is just a difference in the daily coverage type on your different RIs and whatnot, a little bit more of a granular view. So like I said, we have a lot of customers who are using savings plans, and I wanted to give a couple examples. This customer in particular, you can see in the middle, the dark blue is the standard RIs that started to expire. They purchased lots of RIs in different intervals, and they knew that they were expiring, and we worked with them to analyze and figure out which types of instances they wanted to continue to cover. And they ultimately chose an EC2 instance savings plan because they had some very static workloads. So they're now running, if you see the red bars here, they're almost completely covering their on-demand and running about 96% coverage. They're extremely happy. On the other hand, we had a customer who was very tired of the headaches and overhead management that standard RIs came with. And they were constantly being hit with unused instance fees. So when AWS came out with the savings plans, they were ecstatic that they could continue to make commitments and save on their on-demand because they had lots of spiky workloads. And so they've been utilizing savings plans ever since. And since this slide was updated last, they're actually down to about 20% on-demand and continue to be happy. Lastly, I wanted to look at a daily view and how compute savings plans can be applied differently depending on changes in your environment. So this customer has a lot of different instance types, and they have quite a bit of compute savings committed. And you can see in the middle, there's a little bit of fluctuation. They spun up some M5As and some M5Ns. And they took over some of the commitment because the T3s and it looks like the T2s, they're smaller savings. So the M5A and M5Ns took up some of those savings because you can save a lot more. However, on the right side, this customer happened to have some M4 RIs expire. Now, John alluded to it earlier, standard reserved instances take precedent, as well as EC2 instance savings plans before the compute savings plans are applied. So because they're specific to an instance family or instance type and the OS, etc., those get applied first. But as soon as they're expired, the compute savings plan takes over. And we got to see this in action. The customer was thrilled to see that because they were thinking that they had to repurchase some RIs. And we said, no, just wait. Your compute savings plan will handle it. And it certainly did. So with that said, I wanted to wrap it up. We really like savings plans for a couple of reasons. They're not very restrictive. You have a lot of options and you can gain those inaccessible savings globally. They're incredibly flexible. They've got a safety net, in case that your infrastructure changes, and they're really easy to manage and monitor. This is why we love them, and this is why our customers are adopting them like crazy. So to close us out, I want to pass it back to Lucas.
Hey, great. Thanks, Parker. So a couple key takeaways. The first is there's over 25 unique services with different payment options across those 3 cloud providers. So not only do you have to be concerned about, and within those, there's different price savings. So not only do you have to be concerned about purchasing reservations, it's purchasing reservations for the most expensive services. The next thing is that you need to monitor the utilization of your existing reservations. And also monitor the end date. That's obviously the folks at GroupWare have been talking about the benefits of savings plans is the flexibility, and you can kind of not worry about that. But you should, and you should be thinking about that because in theory, there is other usage that now your expensive instances are taking that reservation away from. The next thing is a cloud management platform is critical for identifying these savings and maintaining and staying on top of these. And the last thing is that expertise is available from companies like Cloud Health, VMware, and partners like GroupWare. So I really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
Thank you.